Over the past 5 years, many of you in the room this morning have been to Singapore to teach in our undergraduate and graduate programs. We have very much appreciated your involvement with us in Singapore, and I know that students that you have taught have really appreciated and valued how you've taught, what you've taught, and inspirations that you have made in terms of their current career or future careers in aviation. It has been really appreciated, and I hope very much that you've enjoyed the experience as much as we have. As we look back over the past 5 years, it's probably a good idea to reflect on why Embry-Riddle chose Asia as a major stepping stone in terms of globalization, why the city of Singapore was picked as where we should start our first teaching, why we're here in general. And so I'm just going to spend a few moments going through some of the reasons why Singapore was picked and has been really valuable. Singapore is often referred to as the red dot. Posters all over the city have SG with a red dot, and that means us, and Singaporeans are very proud of what they've achieved in the few decades that they've had since independence in the early 1960s. Just in terms of demographic information, the size of Singapore is about 1/5 the size of Rhode Island, and the population, in comparison with Rhode Island again, is about 5 times that of Rhode Island. Education is a major factor in the life of this country, right from its founding days with Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, who, reflecting the environment that he had achieved in terms of independence, he made a statement which I think is will go down in history about Singapore could only be successful, could only survive if people really committed to education. Education was the key to everything. And so in the years from then to now, we currently, or we did up until last week, have 5 national or 5 state universities. We now have 6. The 6th one is Sim University, or Unisim as we often refer to it, and many of you will have taught our undergraduate programs or courses at Unisim. That's now the 6th university. But it's very interesting if we look at the history of, say, the 2 leading universities here. It's not very old, not very long. If we start off with NTU, Nanyang Technological University, it was formed in 1959, and NUS, National University of Singapore, 1962. NUS grew out of the University of Malaya, which originally was established as a medical college way back in 1905. But if we take those 2 universities and look at their international ranking, again, very interesting. If we take the QS World University rankings, both NTU and NUS are ranked in the top 13. If we take the Times Higher Education World University rankings, they're in the top 55. Not bad for universities which have only been going a little more than half a century. If we were to take a 3-hour flight from Singapore, we would be flying over a population of about 526 million people. Throughout most of this region, education is regarded as a national priority, with significant numbers of students travelling to Europe, mainly to the UK, Germany and France, for their undergraduate and graduate degrees. Increasingly, they are beginning to discover the value of going to the US. So although Europe has been the preferred destination, that is now beginning to change in terms of the US's favour. If we were to take a 5-hour flight from Singapore, um, perhaps an equivalent to a Boston-Los Angeles kind of flight, we'd be flying over 3.2 billion people, or 43% of the world's population. What is interesting, within this radius, there are very few educational equivalents of an Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. China probably has one in the form of the Civil Aviation University of China in Tianjin, and Embry-Riddle has been working with CAUC for some years to develop programs in collaboration with them. Korea has what is used to be called the Hankook Aviation University. It's now the Korean Aviation University in Seoul, and we're developing a relationship with that university, but it's very much smaller than we are. And just recently, I was invited by the Secretary of Transportation in India to go to New Delhi and to listen to what the government is saying about, or what the government was saying about the establishment of a national aviation university. They have now created, through an act of parliament, what they're calling the Rajiv Gandhi National Aviation University, and I met the President and Vice Chancellor on the second day of his appointment to his job, and they're very enthusiastic at following an Embry-Riddle kind of model and having Embry-Riddle work very closely with them as they start from scratch. There is physically nothing there yet, but I think in time the Indians will produce something that is very interesting, and I think that if we are in partnership with them, we will get some real advantages as well. If we look at the Aviation Workforce Challenge, and I've taken figures 2016 to 2035, and I've compared Asia with North America. Again, you can see the enormous challenge we have in this part of the world. 248,000 new pilots, 268,000 technicians, 298 new cabin crew, airports, probably 3 million in terms of airport managers and administrators. Just as an example, in Singapore, little tiny Singapore, if we look at Changi International Airport, which moved to its site at Changi in 1981, and I don't have the figures in front of me, but I think started with about 7 million passengers. In 2015, 55 million passengers. By 2035, 121 million passengers. Not bad for a population of about 5.8 million people. So the growth in aviation is huge, but there's a growing recognition that the way in which we have taught the people, the kind of curriculum, the content that we have been delivering over many years is perhaps great for the 20th century, but not really 21st century. And so there are real strong moves for change, for a reconfiguration in terms of what we do and how we do it. And we are increasingly at Embry-Riddle Asia being called upon to talk to government ministers, to meet with senior people within the airlines and airports and so on, to discuss with them the kind of changes that need to be made, right from regulatory processes through to research that needs to be done. We are currently carrying out a needs assessment in terms of the kind of programs that we think we have data, or we will have data on, that will be relevant not just to Singapore but to the key countries that we want to work with. We're going to start in January with a full-time MBA program, and I think that's got a huge future. We're looking at applying the associate degree in engineering along the lines that Worldwide has been doing for a couple of years. I think this has a major potential. Um, Unmanned aerial systems, very important. The Singapore government is spending millions on developing systems and procedures for it. Ken Witcher participated in a conference just a few weeks ago, and I think he was very impressed, as we were very impressed, with the interest and the commitment that Singaporeans are making to this area. So I think the EMS and unmanned systems very important. The Bachelor of Aviation Maintenance is unfinished business. That's where we started, and with Unisim, it didn't go as well as it should do, and primarily for reasons beyond our control, particularly pricing. It just became too expensive. But there is real interest, particularly from the SIA, Singapore International Airlines, um, uh, engineering company, to partner with us on that program, and we'll see where it goes. Human factors, very important, and this is not a guaranteed choice later in the 5-year program, but it's one that I'm interested in seeing whether whether it would be a good choice or not. And a PhD in aviation. A PhD in aviation. This is the Singapore residency component, which is interesting. The Economic Development Board of Singapore, which is a government agency, has just established a special fund, a multi-million-dollar fund for PhDs basically in engineering and aviation. And I've had a couple of meetings with them. They're very interested in our PhD in aviation. They like what we do. They are very excited about the possibility of that program starting, I would hope, sometime in January. I think we have at the moment about 5 or 6 applicants who are just about through the initial selection system. As I said a few moments ago, we're in our 5th year, and we had a little celebration in our chalet at the Singapore Airshow in February this year. That's a little group of our 13 people who are currently employed. Not bad. When we started 5 years ago, there was just me. So we're making real progress. The chalet that we had at the Singapore Airshow was incredibly valuable. So the pictures here just capture some of the things that were going on. We met with the US Ambassador Kurt Wager, who's been an enormously important person for Embry-Riddle. I'm very sad that he will be leaving us in January, but the contribution that he's made and the support that he's given us at every level has been absolutely first class. The picture there in the middle with Bill is with the Vice Chancellor and President of the University of South Australia, and we've signed an MOU with them to work with them on developing a graduate degree program. The Vice Chancellor or President, David Lloyd, has been very impressed with what we can do with them. He's very, very keen to see us developing research activities, joint research activities, both federal Australian funded programs and private programs. That's another picture of David and one of his key people. And the photograph down the bottom is an interesting one. This is a picture of it's a state institution in Hyderabad in India, and they want to develop a whole series of OPE-styled programs. We're looking at technical English as our first one, and I think that with the enthusiasm and the, I think, financial commitment that the task people, organisations called task, is prepared to give. I look forward to working with them very closely and to having some of you people joining us in India, in Hyderabad, in some of the projects that they want to see us develop. This slide gives you an idea of the way in which the faculty is changing or has been changing over the last 5 years. So obviously we started off in 2010 to 2011 with just Embry-Riddle US faculty, which we valued, and so too in through to 2012, and then we began to hire local faculty and international adjunct faculty, particularly from Europe, from New Zealand. We now are projecting in this financial year about 49 local faculty, so we've really changed the balance significantly, which means that we've increased the need, the demand for people like Kate to work with faculty, particularly faculty who've never taught in a US university, in terms of our style of teaching, how we do things. Really that sort of faculty development issue is critically important for us, because I think we're dealing with, as you can see, with people from all over the world, and getting them to be Embry-Riddle people. And I think that as we develop over the next 5 years, faculty development, curriculum development, if you like, Asianizing our curriculum within our given LOs is going to be really, really important. It's going to be a major job.
Graham, thanks for getting us to this point. I want to jump in now and walk us through some of the final slides of our presentation this morning, and I want to start with looking back at some of the prior graduation ceremonies that we've held. In 2012, we saw our first batch of MBA and aviation students graduate. We had 19 graduates, it was our first ceremony, and it was an incredibly exciting time for us at Embry-Riddle Asia. In 2013, we saw 25 MBA and aviation students graduate, and in 2014, we had another 30 students graduate, a lot of them MBA and aviation students, but we also started to see our first Master of Science in Aeronautics students graduate. By 2015, we started to see our first undergraduate students graduate. We had 95 students at our graduation ceremony last year, most of them from the Bachelor of Science in Aviation Business program, joining the MBA in Aviation and Master of Science in Aeronautics as well. This year, in a few weeks' time, we're celebrating our 5th graduation ceremony, and we're expecting over 115 students to participate. These are going to be students coming from the Bachelor of Science in Aviation Business, the Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics, Bachelor of Science in Aviation Maintenance, in addition to the MBA and the MSA. We're incredibly excited to have this many students graduating this year. We've actually outgrown the Sim Ki Boon Auditorium at the Singapore Aviation Academy, and we're excited to be holding our graduation this year at a 5-star hotel. We're also incredibly lucky to have Mr. Yapong Heng, the former Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore, as our guest of honor this year. He's going to be speaking to the students. He's been a great friend of the university and very supportive of everything that Embry-Riddle Asia has done here over the last 5 years. I'd like to take a moment now to talk about student governance. This is the first year that Embry-Riddle Asia has had a Student Government Association. The students that you see up on the screen were elected by their classmates to represent the student body here in Singapore. The SGA doesn't just work with Embry-Riddle Asia administration, but also university administration. An example of that is Alex Ong. Alex is our president. He can be seen on the lower left-hand side of the screen. And last week he was in Daytona Beach presenting to the University Board of Trustees during their general session. Alex did a great job representing Singapore and all of his classmates in front of the Board of Trustees, and we're really proud of all the work that he put into his presentation. The SGA isn't just focused on life outside the classroom like most student governments would be, but they're also focused on the academic experience inside the classroom. They work very closely with us to make sure that all the academic feedback that students have gets to the right people. And they're also working with new students to make sure that they know exactly where to go for help if they need it, and they're also helping to organize tutors for some students that need that additional help. A lot of their time is spent outside the classroom organizing activities and events for our students. They've assisted with our freshman orientation camp. Last month they had a night cycling event. They're having a bowling competition next month. They're keeping our students very busy when they're not in class. They're in the process of planning community outreach initiatives. Next year they're planning to go to Myanmar, where they'll be going there to build some homes for some of the less fortunate, but they're also involved with our career services department, making sure that students understand the value of an internship and the importance of preparing for their career as they near graduation. Probably one of their largest initiatives is helping our students form extracurricular clubs and organizations. In the past, we've had students that have wanted to form clubs, but without the guidance or the proper framework, it was very difficult for them to do so. The SGA has fixed that and made sure that students know exactly how they can create a club and organization, and the next slide will show us some of those. And here's a look at the 5 clubs and organizations that the Student Government Association has helped to create so far this year. I'm confident that within 6 months' time we'll have another 5 and probably another 5 every 6 months thereafter. The 5 that we have today include the Embry-Riddle Asia intramural soccer team, or football team as we call it here. They compete with other colleges and universities here in Singapore in friendly matches throughout the year. We also have a Women in Aviation chapter, which is part of the larger Women in Aviation organization. We have a media club, a flight simulator club, and a water sports club that helps students get involved in some of the various water activities in Singapore. Each one of these clubs has a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. They've got a constitution, they've got bylaws, and there's a formal application process to apply for university funding. This is the same type of structure that we see in Daytona Beach and Prescott, and it's really important that in the absence of a dean of students or a director of student activities, that the SGA create an environment where students have access to university funding if they want to create a club or organization that meets their special interest. So as we wrap up, a great big thank you from all of us at Embry-Riddle Asia. From the faculty to the staff to the students, we realize that Embry-Riddle Asia is what it is today because of the support that it's received from worldwide over the years. It's been an amazing 5 years. We're looking forward to the next 5 years, and we certainly wish all of you at Embry-Riddle Worldwide a great 2016 conference.